I'm Associate Pastor Benji Lillane of the City on a Hill Church. Don't settle for the natural, go after the supernatural. Exodus 14, as we know, covers the story of Moses and the Israelites in the Red Sea. Now, where we're going to dive in a little bit deeper is right after the point where God actually warned Moses that he was going to harden the hearts of the Pharaoh and the Egyptians, and they began to make their way after the Israelites. Exodus 14, beginning in verse 10, it says, "When Pharaoh drew near to the Israelites, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. So they were very afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses, 'Because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you dealt so with us to bring us up out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, Let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness.' And Moses said to the people, 'Do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever.'" As the story goes on, Moses, of course, parts the Red Sea by the power of God by stretching his hand over it. And by the way, in the middle of the chapter, God actually loosened the wheels on the chariots of the Pharaoh and his army as they made their way into where the sea was. And then, of course, Moses stretched his hand out again. God collapses the Red Sea. The army of the Pharaoh is consumed. Verse 31, "Thus Israel saw the great work which the Lord had done in Egypt, so the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses." This chapter is an example of two important lessons in walking with God that really go well together. First is don't settle. The second is to go after the supernatural. The supernatural can be defined as that which defies what actually makes sense to us based on what we normally see, hear, taste, touch, or smell. And when the Israelites saw the Egyptians' pursuit of them, they were afraid and longed to be what they once were, which was slaves. But God wants us to believe that he wants us to be the head, not the tail, the above, not the beneath. Verse 12 says the Israelites were complaining to Moses that it would have been better for them to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness, but they weren't seeing the big picture that God was showing them, or what he was about to show them a little bit more accurately. God wants us by faith to not settle for much less just to get by, or to long for what we used to have when he is leading us to greater things, like what he just did for the Israelites. He wants us not to just believe in, but go after the supernatural, which is only possible by him, like the Red Sea parting. When Moses stretched his hand out over the Red Sea and then God parted it, Moses was basically saying to the Israelites, you want to go back to being slaves? When we're walking with God the way that we are, what you just saw, this supernatural work is what we are living. We're not just seeing the supernatural, we're living the supernatural. Here's an important note. God created the way things naturally work. So why couldn't he alter it at any moment for any purpose? He wants us to, again by faith, go after the things we can only see by the mighty power of God. God bless you.